Welcome, my friends, to Ask Dr. Doreen. We have with us in the studio right now Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, and she's here to answer your questions. For those of you who are new to the show and have never had an opportunity to meet or talk with Dr. Granpeesheh, let me just tell you that she is a true expert in the field of autism, having been working in this field for over 30 years. And I hate telling on you because you never know to look at her.
No, it's great.
But she has worked with everything from very small children.
Are you going to next year be able to say 40 years? Because next year it'll be 40 years.
Is that true?
Yeah, 78.
That's like amazing. That's a huge milestone.
It is a huge milestone.
Because I always think 30 and I think, oh, what are we saying? 30 in 2 months, but I've been saying 30 for a while. Yeah. So 40 years.
In the field, yeah. I started in 78, so next year it's 2018.
Wow. I don't even know what to say. We have to have a party for that. But in any case, and you've worked. Good thing to interrupt before. But you've been working with from small children up through senior citizens, every possible configuration of not just autism, but it's called the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And I want to bring that up because I don't bring it up enough. I think there's nobody who has a clearer vision of what it is, where we've come from, what it is we're looking at right now, and where we need to go. I always say you're a visionary. And so much of my life now, I'm so hyper aware of perspective taking. It was never a part of my conversation. If somebody had said perspective taking, I was like, what are you talking about? Like on Disneyland, how they have it so that it looks like the buildings go further away? Like I really didn't know. What were we talking about? And now it's just a part of my every single day. And I really have to bow to you because I know that you are better at perspective taking than anyone else, and we need that in the autism community. Somebody who sees what it's like for the kid, somebody who sees what it's like for the mom, the dad, the grandparents, the scientist, somebody who sees what it's like for the insurance company, for the teacher. Because
their perspectives are.
We got to get on the same page.
Definitely.
And I think that you are uniquely positioned to be able to inform all of us, because I think you can see it in a way that I know I'm looking to see it in a better way now, because I've been treated to seeing it through your eyes for a couple of years now, and it's a powerful view.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's not just autism, right, Shannon? I mean, I feel like once you see things from different people's perspectives, then you can pretty much explain everything in their behavior, no matter what. And it really helps you go through life as a whole, and it helps you just understand where people are coming from.
Well, there are things that you have said over the years that have become a part of how I look at the world. They're just written in granite.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank
you.
And one of the things that you said a couple of years ago that I just go back to on a daily basis is that every single problem that there is on the planet, if you keep chipping away at it, you find that it's a problem with perspective taking. That wars and everything. That if you and I have to be honest that has become a part of how I cope.
Right.
Because when I see things that I don't understand and think, what are we ever going to be able to do about that? It is comforting to me to realize this on a basic level is perspective taking, and then I have to take a step back and try to see the other person's point of view, which is a stretch for me sometimes.
Absolutely. Because once you start looking at other people's points of view, then the interesting thing becomes, how did they form their point of view? And then you come to realize that development, it always, so how your development from childhood to adulthood, how that influences your perspective.
Yes.
And then to go one step further, your development is really all about the consequences and antecedents in your environment.
Yes.
How you were rewarded for certain things, how you were punished for certain things. I mean, you look at very, very touchy subjects like this, all the stuff that happened in Charlottesville.
That's exactly what I was thinking about.
And you think of these young kids who are neo-Nazis and they have this strong belief. it's not like they were born that way, right?
Exactly.
They were reinforced for thinking something that to us is horrendous.
Yes.
And nevertheless, though, without that shelter of all of their friends and family who think the same and have been their support group and their team and their peers and all that sort of stuff, they feel very, very lost. Yeah. Without thinking of other people as being less than themselves, they feel very, very little. Yeah. So there's all these things about how you see the world and how that depends on, it's all about ABA. You know, it's really about how the environment influences us.
Yes.
And so, you know, it makes it harder to, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's still very hard to accept these people and their thoughts, but it explains it.
But the only way we can get to real change, real substantive change, is if we look at that.
Those types of things.
And it gives me hope that the most tweeted tweet, most, when you retweets, what last week was President Obama had tweeted a Mandela quote, which is about the fact that people are not born hating, you have to teach them how to hate. And then and everybody was retweeting that to remind themselves, okay, these people were taught to hate. And the thing that's hopeful about that is to think that in the future we can teach something different.
Yes,
if we can teach to hate, then we can teach to do other things.
Absolutely.
And that there is hope in that. It doesn't mean we can go, oh, okay, it's all okay. No, quite the contrary. But we all, you know, it gives us hope that we can get busy and that it's not this vast thing of, okay, what can I do? There's nothing that can be done.
Absolutely.
And I feel like so many times in the last week, I was in conversations with parents and other people and talking about that for me, when I feel at sea, the only thing that I can do that I know at this point in my life is take action. Mm-hmm. That action is, because otherwise, I've also heard you talk about depression is that inward
anger turns inwards, yeah.
And that if you feel hopeless and feel like you can't do anything, then it becomes depression because your anger goes inside, and that the only thing for me to do is take some sort of action, which is why we started with Texas. It makes you feel hopeless.
Absolutely.
When you see, but if you take some action, and it doesn't have to be the action that saves the world. We don't all have to get on planes.
That's
Apparently,
right.
They're turning boats away now because so many people have shown up with boats of people to help. But they've said to some of them, go home, we have too many boats, we can't move because there are so many boats. And we can't all go to be part of the boats, but we all can give $1 or $5 or something that adds up and makes a difference. And when you do take action, you feel better. Right. Which sounds like it doesn't have anything to do with autism, but it's everything. I've been talking to autism parents about not getting stuck in one particular thought.
Oh yeah.
Not getting stuck on, you know, the way this started was that I said that I do this talk and I always say I'm the luckiest person I know. Mm-hmm. And then I give examples of why I'm so lucky. But one of the biggest ways that I'm lucky is that my child was developing typically. Everything was in place. He was making eye contact. He was speaking in full sentences. And then something happened. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what happened. And I, every day, make the choice not to be stuck in that moment.
Yeah.
That I make the choice to say, but what am I going to do about it?
Right.
Not, because I could sit down and make myself full on crazy.
Right. Absolutely.
About what happened.
Absolutely.
And whose fault is it?
Right. Absolutely.
And who do I assign me and other people? But I make the choice every day because that is not action for me. For other people, they found a way to make that actionable.
Right.
And I have nothing but respect, but I make the choice every day to say, what am I going to do about the fact, my child was diagnosed with autism, we lost language, lost the icon, what am I going to do about it?
Right.
And every time I get a little bit stuck and I say, no, do something, even if it's moved this piece of paper over here,
right.
I can get myself, because I can be the amazing paralyzed woman. There's a talk I do about that.
It's funny because with autism, I always say that, and look what you've done with it actually, Shannon, and you're a great example of this. Thank because what you do, like just through this show, just through the travel that you do to all of our sites, it influences other people pretty significantly. So you take something that could have turned into this horrible depression, etc. thing, and you've turned it into a positive thing that impacts the world in a very positive way.
Well, thank you.
And that's the truth. And I always talk about parents who make a choice of actually just feeling, and it's a natural thing to feel victimized, to feel depressed, why me, all of that, and then ultimately helping the parents. And sometimes they on their own are just incredible people who take that and turn it around and then start to give in incredible ways. You know, you being one, Nancy being another parent, with many, Bonnie, Bryce, so many parents that who do something significant that just changes the world.
Well, we've seen that here. I mean, I'm getting chills thinking about it. Forever, we've talked about the power of one here on the show. And I've seen parents who have arrived and started asking questions. And the mom that we referred to forever is the strawberry mom, because she was trying to get her son to eat a strawberry. And, you know, and I remember having conversations with her after that, because she's a local mom. And she was like, I haven't found my place. I haven't found my thing. I haven't found, like, you know, where I fit in and how I'm going to be able to give back. And she started a little over a year ago. There's a young woman who's a sibling in New Jersey who started a group called Fantastic Friends. And it's neurotypical kids getting together with kids who are on the spectrum, and they do an activity and they have a prom, and you know, it's just amazing. Awesome. And so she started it here in the San Fernando Valley. And I have seen this mom blossom, and she's doing all these things.
Absolutely.
And you just go, look at that. You know, people, Nancy Alspaugh Jackson has the best quote. She says, you know, you just haven't found how your disability is your opportunity yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that when you do, and you find your place of how your groove, of how you're going to be able to give back, it makes it better. But it starts with action.
Definitely.
So anyway, having said all of that, thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure always.
And for answering questions. I'm going to jump into a question that we have. DJ Phillips is, and he has given permission always for me to say his name, and he's going to be on the show with us here coming up sometime soon. But he is a gentleman who writes into the show always. DJ is sort of our honorary, I wish that I could employ DJ, because he calls me all the time and says, no, you filed this under the wrong category, or you know what, Shannon, this got cut off a minute here. He keeps watch. He's our quality control, right? That's here at Autism Live. So we thank DJ Phillips for all that he does, and he's really a diligent viewer. And so he had a question that he wanted me to ask you today. How do you teach a 24-year-old with Down syndrome how not to be a sore loser when playing games?
Right, and that's and hi DJ, always nice to hear your questions, and I'm just so honored that you watch our show and like our show.
Yes.
That's a very hard thing to teach, you know. One thing I've found is that individuals with Down syndrome are actually easier in a lot of ways to teach things to than individuals with autism. I think there's a lot of research that shows people with Down syndrome actually learn very, very well, and sometimes can even function very, very close to normal, whatever that may mean, in society. So it's not about the diagnosis so much as it is about actually teaching someone not to be a sore loser. And I'll tell you why it's difficult, because we have to be able to first define what is a sore loser. So as like anything else in behaviorism, you want to be able to define it on very, very precise terms. And so let's say from my perspective, a sore loser would be someone who maybe has a tantrum whenever they lose. Or perhaps, I don't know, says mean things if they lose. Or so we'd have to be able to like really itemize the specific behavior, that one observable behavior. So you always have to define according to observable behavior. So first you define the observable behavior and say, if any of these things occur, that is the indication that the person is a sore loser. And then the second thing that you have to do is you have to make it so that the individual actually cares not to exhibit those behaviors. So how do you do that? Now, you could do it in a very kind of sterile experimental format, which is you could reinforce the individual for making statements that are not indicative of being a sore loser. So, for instance, you could give the individual a whole array of appropriate statements, things like, Oh, that's sad, but maybe I'll do better next time. Or, oh, well, everybody loses once in a while. Or any other type of statement that acknowledges the fact that they lost, but is not indicative of being a sore loser. And you could reinforce the individual. So when the game is over and they've lost, then you will actually put the list of options in front of the individual, assuming they can read it. And they would then select one and they would say it, and you're done, and you reinforce the individual and say, that was amazing, and all that sort of stuff, and you move on. So that's the very basic form of it. And in real life, why are some people sore losers? So let me just kind of separate what I've been explaining. What I just explained is the pure behavior analytic view of it. And because I have this dual thing going on inside me, I'll now give you the psychologist view of it, right? So the psychologist view of it is that obviously we are sore losers when the loss indicates more than just a game. So if it's a loss of a game and we know that we have multiple opportunities to play this game again, and next time we might win or whatever it is, and it doesn't really matter because after all it's a game, then we wouldn't be a sore loser about it. But the reason that someone could be a sore loser is that it means a lot more to them. So what it means to them is that they've been a loser in life. It means that they will now experience a massive amount of embarrassment. That it means to them that because I lost this game, people are thinking of me in a much worse way. So in other words, in the individual's cognitive abilities, like what they think about it, the interpretation, again, their perspective, their rumination over it, makes it much bigger than it actually is. In fact, in life, if you think about it, every reaction we have is because of that, right? I mean, one person won't react to the same thing happens. One thing happens, you will react differently than I will. And it all has to do with our internal interpretations of the situation. So if this individual is a higher functioning individual, I think it would be important also to help them understand a little bit more about their own belief systems, about their own like how they are interpreting it. And that's where the cognitive behavior therapy comes in. So, I like very much with our kids on the spectrum, what we do is we teach them behavioral consequences. We do ABA, and we reinforce the appropriate behavior. We don't give any kind of attention when an inappropriate, so when the person is being a sore loser and saying those mean things or whatever behaviors that are indicative of being a sore loser, we ignore those, we put them on extinction. As anything else with behavior analysis, you ignore the behavior you don't want, you reinforce the behavior you do want, and things do change, and that's what we do. But then we go further with our high-functioning kids, and we try to get them to internalize that by really understanding the cognition behind it. That's why we have a whole curriculum called cognition. And that whole area really is more cognitive behavior therapy, and it's about trying to teach the individual that the way you think about things is what's causing you to see this as a negative event.
Yeah.
And that's a really important thing, and I think that's the hard part. And that's why I said it's pretty hard to do this. But and until you do that, it isn't internalized. So that means that if you just behaviorally deal with this situation with this 24-year-old, every new situation you'll have to keep teaching because they haven't figured out the formula. They haven't figured out that, oh, I react as a sore loser to all situations of loss because I see them as indicating much more than just a game. You know what I mean? And so the next game and the next game we'll have to go ahead and teach the individual until they finally figure it out.
Yeah.
Whereas in cognitive behavior therapy and psychological practice, what you're doing is you're also helping the individual open their eyes to how they perceive the world, how they interpret events, and they find that their own interpretation is what's faulty.
Yeah.
And that changes things.
And I just want to say, DJ, I mean, we've talked about it a lot here on the show, but Skills has an array of lessons.
Absolutely.
There's even one that's called Winning and Losing.
Yes.
In Skills. And if you're interested in Skills, it's you can call 877-975-4559, or you can go to skillsforautism.com. I love that you can go into skills and you can search just one lesson. You could go into winning and losing games. You could do that. But as you say, it's so often a skill connects to something else. And I love that you just gave us a broad array. And I, of course, always think about when Jem was going through these lessons and skills, that's always, as soon as you start talking about something, I think, okay, so which lesson would that have been in skills and who worked on that with him? That's where my mind goes. And it really, I was thinking about, that there are self-regulation lessons in there too, that are super important. I can remember when Jem was 7 going to Disneyland with friends that have 3 neurotypical boys. So there we were at Disneyland, and my son had been having ABA therapy at that point for 4 years. The other kids were out playing with other kids, and I would sometimes cry about that and think, oh, he's missing out on everything that they got, you know. But there was a moment when we were saying, which ride are we going to go on next? And one of the other boys, who was a full year and a half older than Jem, said, well, I really want to ride this ride. And his mom said, oh, did you not see when we came through the gate, that ride is closed for renovations? And there were tears and there was hysteria. And he laid down on the sidewalk and he was like, I don't even want to be here if that ride's not here. And Jem looked at me and he said, doesn't he know it's not the end of the world? And I was like, win for the ABA, right? And he had that perspective because he had worked on 75 different lessons that coalesced in that moment.
Absolutely.
And he said, this is a bummer, but it's not the end of the world.
Right.
I'll come again. This is like a 2 out of a 10.
Right.
I'm sad about it, but...
And all of those things, like teaching our children how to rate their disasters. Sometimes I see that even with my kids right now. It's so important to be able to put it in contrast with other things, like giving it a 2 out of 10. That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
If you really sit down and think for a moment, how bad is this? And you realize that it's not really a 10, it just immediately alleviates things for you,
Absolutely.
There's also we haven't taken it very, very far, but a big section is beliefs, and in cognition. Beliefs is very important because it helps you to understand that what you believe is not necessarily a fact. And that knowledge is very different from beliefs, and those 2 separate sections in cognition curriculum. And that's kind of important. And because we have shown through skills, the curriculum, that what you believe eventually ends up feeling like it's fact. It becomes your knowledge. And they influence each other. And it's really important to separate those and sometimes just realize that, oh, it's something I believe. It's not necessarily the truth. I believe that, I don't, this going to this park today is not even worth it just because whatever, it is the end of the world, but really it isn't.
Right. Well, and the truth is that that's not in the academic curriculum.
No, not at all, yeah.
But it applies to the academics because now in core curriculum, starting in 2nd and 3rd grade, they're getting them ready to be able to do critical thinking for essays and things like that.
That's great.
So you will see in 3rd grade, Jem was working on it sooner, so he knew from those lessons the difference between a fact and an opinion. But then if he started coming home in 3rd grade with these things saying, Billy does this, is this a fact or an opinion? Because when you get to writing an essay, you give your sources, but then you give your opinion.
Absolutely.
And you have to understand the difference between the two.
Yes.
And if you're thinking, I think sometimes I always tell therapists that the first time that we waited forever for ABA to come about, and then we started and they were like touch car, and I remember going, we're never going to get there. If we're going to touch car, I need my kid to speak so that he can go to college. Touch car, you guys?
No.
And they always laugh at me when I say that, right? They're like, well, there was much more to that. But you don't know that on the first day
well, you
when
have
people
to
are doing
start.
touch car.
And you're right for saying that, Shannon. I appreciate you saying that because many parents now might be thinking my child won't get there. But our kids ultimately eventually do get there, whether they're young and get there fast, like some kids, or they're older and they get there. And it's important for them to, anything that you can teach a child to figure out the formula is better than teaching memorization, always.
Always. And yet ABA gets the rap all the time that it's just rote memorization.
Right.
No, ABA teaches your kid how to learn and how to apply what they know. It really teaches you how to organize your thoughts to be productive.
Exactly.
Towards a goal. Anyway, we've gone on too long without a break. We're going to take, DJ, I hope that answered your question. And thank you so much for writing into us. We're going to take a break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk. Somebody wrote into us yesterday and said, I have a 3-year-old and it looks like we might be looking at autism. What do I need to do? And boy, I'm so glad you came here, because we're going to be able to fill your bag full of stuff to get you on the right track. So stick with us. We'll be back more with Ask Dr. Doreen. Oh, and as we go to break, I was supposed to tell you, we got 1 day left that you can enter our contest for the scallop. These are these cute little seats that fold up into, it looks like a tote bag, but what they do, it's got a little harness that somebody straps themselves into it, and when the kids lean back, it hugs them, supports them. You can take it to a concert and sit on it for something that has no back, but if you've got a little one who's having trouble sitting quietly during circle time or has low muscle tone and is tipping over, you need the scallop. This is amazing. It's coming to us from R82 in Convade. We love this company. They're the ones that gave that special needs car seat to the mom who needed it so desperately last December, and they were here on the show with us. They're giving away 1 scallop. Excuse me, I get so excited I'm throwing pens. 1 scallop we're going to give away to a viewer tomorrow. All you need to do is write to the email that you see on the screen there, autismlive@gmail.com, and say, I want the scallop. We do want you to include your mailing address so that we can mail it to the winner. We do have some growth charts for some of the people who don't win, but there have already been enough people that we don't have enough growth charts. So just know you might just be entering, and it will be 1 lucky winner though that gets a scallop. And if you want more information about a scallop because you want to get one, you can call 844-876-6245, or you can visit alsoforme.com. This is an amazing invention. We are going to take a break and we'll be back with more Ask Dr. Doreen after these messages.
Welcome to Smarty. This month we're going to be making our own chore spin wheel. You'll notice while we make this fun activity, these icons are going to be popping up onto the screen. These correlate to specific skill sets that are in the Skills program. Skills is the ABA-based online tool that helps parents build their own teaching plan for children on the autism spectrum. If you are a Skills user, this will help you get the most out of this educational opportunity. Well, let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are a large bowl to trace, cardstock, scissors, a pencil, a ruler, a hole puncher, a metal brad, and any other arts and crafts materials you want to use to decorate your pinwheel with. So step 1, you're going to take your large bowl and place it on top of the cardstock and trace the circle. Step 2, you guessed it, you're going to take your scissors and you're going to cut along the line. Step 3, you're going to fold the circle into quarters. This is the best way to make sure all the triangles within it are symmetrical. Once you folded the paper, you're going to take your ruler and you're going to trace those lines so you can actually see them on the circle. Now here comes the fun part. Take your arts and crafts materials and you're going to decorate the chore spin wheel. I used some crayons to color in every other quadrant so you could see them pop and see the difference between the different chores. Place the different adaptive skills your child is working on in the different quadrants. Once you're done decorating the circle and labeling the different chores in each quadrant, then you're going to take your scrap paper that you had left over and you're going to cut an arrow out of it. Once the arrow has been cut, you're going to take your hole puncher and hole punch on the very edge of it. This will be your spinner. Then you're going to take your arrow and your circle and line them up and take your brad and place it through and secure it. And voila, you have your finished chore spin wheel. Well, I enjoyed making this activity with you and I hope to see you soon. Until next time, guys, craft on! To find more about Skills and to access all of the lessons you saw in today's Smarty, visit skillsforautism.com and click on the parent icon. Skills, the online autism solution.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, and she's answering your questions in real time. So we had somebody write in yesterday, and they said, I'm just now finding out that my 3-year-old may have autism. I'm going to need some help reading the symptoms. He may be autistic. And I think how great, first of all, I just want to congratulate you that you're asking questions and that you found us and that you have already said the thing that is hardest to say at the beginning, which is, I'm going to need some help. And you already are aware of the fact that that is in fact what you're going to need. And I'm thrilled that you're here, and I'm sending you air hugs. And I want to say to you that it's going to be okay, and that you're going to be okay, and that there is help and that there is support. It's just like a decision tree figuring out how you're going to get it the quickest.
Yeah.
But I'm going to turn that over to you.
Sure.
And let you have at it.
So I'll first give you like a sort of a summary of the diagnostic manual symptomology, and then I'll just talk to you about symptoms to look for your
But I
child.
think they've already looked at the symptoms. I think, do you read it that way, that they're wanting to know what the symptoms are?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm just thinking that the person I'm going to need some help reading the symptoms. So I'm not sure. So I'll try to define them. But
okay, because I read it, I think I'm going to need some help because I think he has autism.
Right.
I've looked at the symptoms. I think he has autism, so I think I
Right.
think they already know the symptoms.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
So we'll talk about maybe both.
Okay.
So, so the symptoms of autism are essentially you're looking at 2 areas of deficit. So for a 3-year-old, what you're looking at is this would be a child who is not communicating the same way that other 3-year-olds would be communicating. And that is a really important thing, because when you can't communicate appropriately, you become frustrated, and then you start to show other behaviors that are not the symptoms of autism, but they are side effects, as I've always said, because you can't communicate. So communicating like 3-year-olds basically means that you're able to express your needs, you're able to understand when you can have things and when you can't have things, you're able to wait, you're able to pay attention when other people draw your attention, or you're able to pay attention to things that are just inherently important in the environment, like things that maybe have your name in them or are louder, those types of things. And so that's a big part of communication. And if those things are lacking, then you're going to be frustrated. When you're frustrated, you can't express yourself, then you tantrum instead, you aggress, you hit people, you grab things, you start to do other ways of communicating. You show behaviors that are not appropriate. Another part of autism that's a diagnostic feature is the fact that you have what we call stereotypic repetitive behaviors. Now this is very important, because if you don't have the stereotypic repetitive behaviors, then your diagnosis is ASD, or autism spectrum disorder, but more Asperger's type. And the repetitive stuff that we're talking about is stuff like lining up objects, repetitively turning the lights on and off, closing the door, looking at things from the corner of your eyes, twirling objects, looking at objects that are circular a lot, looking at reflections, playing with sound, things that are repetitive and don't seem like they have any function of their own. The reason that our children do these things is varied, and I think some of this behavior is just because the child has different sensory input and they're trying to modulate the sensory input in their environment in one way or another. But regardless, while they're doing these things, they're not paying attention and learning like a typical child would, because this type of behavior is much more, I don't want to say rewarding, but it's like any other habit. It becomes addictive and it becomes rewarding, and you engage in this habit so much that you just exclude yourself from the rest of the world, and you become so turned in and isolated that you are not paying attention to the rest of the world and you're not learning. You'd rather do this. And those are the 2 key components. It's sort of, you know, you are doing so much of this other stereotypical behavior, and during that time you're not learning, and so therefore your communication is delayed. If your communication is delayed, obviously your social behavior is delayed, which means it's a cycle, right? So the more socially delayed you are, the more you're doing these internal ways of reinforcing yourself, and it just keeps getting worse. It's a perpetual circle. That's bad. Now, the good news is that your child is only 3, and if you're saying may have autism, that means that the symptoms may not be very clear to whoever has diagnosed, or perhaps to you, or whatever it is. But the sooner you identify, and the label doesn't matter. The label only matters because it gets you funding. That's it. The rest of it doesn't matter. It's a series of symptoms that you're dealing with. So if I said my child who's comes from another country, let's say, you know, I've adopted a child from Korea and I want to teach this child English, I would do the same stuff. Let's say I have a child who has real severe visual problems and we haven't gotten glasses yet, I would do the same stuff. So it doesn't I mean, we do this for children with fetal alcohol syndrome, with like a variety of learning disabilities, all learning. So don't be afraid of the label. Don't let the label frighten you in any way. Don't let the label give you the impression that this is going to be lifelong. Don't let anything overwhelm you. Just list a series of symptoms, and what we're going to do is we're going to take each one of those symptoms and turn them around as best as we can. So what you do is you essentially, what we do in behavior analysis is that we essentially list all the things that we consider to be deficient, and we list all the things that we consider to be excessive, and then we try to balance them out. And that's what ABA does. So something that's deficient, for instance, is language. So you increase language, you teach speech and language, and as you teach everything, you reinforce more and more of that. What seems to be excessive, maybe it's a self-stimulatory type of behavior. Maybe this is a child who lines objects up. Okay, I'm going to decrease that. How do I decrease that? I prevent it from happening. I keep my child engaged in something that is allowed and good. So anything that's not appropriate, I'm trying to reduce that, not reward it, not allow it. That's called, extinction or blocking. Both of those things are very effective. And I'm reinforcing instead and prompting all the things that are good. I'm modeling for my child language and speech and all these other things, and social behavior and all of that. So I'm teaching all these great skills. The more of these I teach, the less of the other challenging stuff will actually happen, because don't forget, the challenging stuff happens because I don't have other skills. I hit because I can't verbally express myself. I repetitively play with a toy because I can't play appropriately with other children and I don't get enough reward out of it. Once those things are in place, these things aren't necessary anymore. So now, just to give you that, so that's the gist of ABA, and wherever you are, you need to just reach out to us. 3 is great. It's very, very young. It's perfect. It's the most ripe age for learning. And what you do is you get an ABA program, an intensive ABA program. I'm saddened to see so many ABA agencies out there who take in 3-year-olds and do 10-hour programs, which have, by published research over and over, been shown not to be effective. Because the truth is, your child has a certain number of deficits, and as they age, so once they become 3.5, there's more deficits, and once they become 4, there's more. So it has to be very intensive, because over the course of the next 2 to 3 years, you're trying to catch them up to the level of a 6-year-old, and 6-year-olds can do a lot, let me tell you. So that 3-year period, you're not just teaching what a 3-year-old can do, you're teaching faster than their normal development, because you got to catch them up.
Yeah.
So it's got to be intensive, and when I say intensive, I mean 40 hours of therapy at least per week. 1-to-1 therapy, 40 hours per week. That's very important. I would recommend that you keep the child out of school for as long as you are legally allowed to do so that you can teach more intensively. Intensive ABA is much more intensive than school. It just is. We're packing stuff in because we're trying to catch the child up. So it's like all day long, every day. And what you do, and you do that, and there's play involved in it, so it's not like an aversive experience for the child. It's packed with reinforcers, it's packed with play and breaks and all sorts of stuff, and a good ABA program knows how to do all that. So what you're doing is called EIBI. It's also referred to as EIBI, which is Early Intensive Behavior Intervention, and you can get it pretty much anywhere in the country now. We have over 140 sites, so you're welcome to get on our website, which is CARD, Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and we'll help you. If we're not in your region, we'll help you find another organization that is in your region, because there are organizations everywhere now, and you definitely will get a supervisor who's called a BCBA, which stands for Board Certified Behavior Analyst, and you'll get a team of therapists, and hopefully they'll use technology like Skills, which gives you a full picture of every deficit your child has, and they get to work and they start teaching all those areas, and before you know it, you'll see incredible gains with your child.
Absolutely. So centerforautism.com, you can go there, you can click on the locations tab to see if one is near you, or you can call the 800 number, or there is a portal on which you can go and start a process to help you see if you are able to get CARD where you are, or CARD can refer you to somebody. In the meantime, though, if you become a CARD client, you're going to need to fill out the skills assessment. I say to everyone, you should do that anyway for yourself. It's the best gift. It takes a while. It's something that you have to answer a bunch of questions, but you can do that, and in a trial period, you get a 14-day free trial period. You could do that to see where you're at. And I think that could be really, really useful. But it is, as Lisa Ackerman says, when you think that your child has autism, it's not game over, it's game on. So that action piece that we were talking about before, you gotta get into the action. But you can come here and ask questions, and we will be here for you. You do not need to do this alone, and you won't be the first person to have done this. And I always say to people, look, if I could do this, I know for sure that you could do this. And I'm happy to help you on your road. So stay tuned with us, right? We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back. I'm hoping to get to 2 questions. I welled up here. We just got a question from our West Virginia mom that we've got to talk about. I'm devastated for you.
And I definitely want to address this potty training one, because they're in the middle of the procedure, and it's important that I comment on it.
All right. I don't know how we're going to get to all 3 of those.
Okay.
Short break, and then we're going to come back. Stick with us.
What is autism?
I do need
What
to.
is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to
Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism,
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them.
Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
Always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome.
Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Welcome back. We're going to rapid fire as fast as we can 3 questions that I really want to get to. Okay. First one, I'm potty training my 9-year-old using the Fox and Asrin method that you spoke of on your show. My son has severe autism, so I know this will take longer than usual. I've gotten to the point where he's holding his pee for 15 minutes. However, what is the ratio of liquid intake to time off the potty? I don't think I should continue to flood him with liquids, but I don't know how much I should lessen the intake. Please help. All your toilet training tips have been so helpful. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
So very quickly, please stop flooding him. At this point, you need to stop flooding him with water, and you need to start gradually going down to normal. So, in other words, normal intake of fluids should be half of your body weight in ounces.
Per day?
Per day. So, for instance, if he's 9 years old, I don't know how much, maybe he weighs 80 pounds. Okay. If he weighs 80 pounds, he needs 40 ounces of water a day. That's it. A day. So that's pretty easy to measure, and so start dropping to that. And that's it. And just keep him on the 15-minute schedule right now. All you do for the next couple of weeks is send him to the bathroom every 15 minutes. Then what you do is you just start increasing that. Yeah. Now, whether or not he's successful at the 15th minute, it doesn't matter really. The issue is that you just want to make sure that there's no mistakes happening in between when he's off. But if you keep him 15 minutes and you very slowly increase to 20, 25, 30, and so on, then after you've done that over the course of a month and he's on a regular schedule at about 30 minutes, then you start to try to fade off your reminder. Then it becomes then you just basically, like, you'll show a picture, or you'll put a watch on him which has a buzzer every 30 minutes, something that is more subtle than someone reminding him, and then gradually it becomes just a normal habit.
Okay, so timer goes off, you go to the bathroom, and he can go or not go. You have a couple of minutes that he stays there in the bathroom, go or not go, but it's not a recrimination thing. You're supposed to go. There's no discussion about it. We just put him on the potty. Not at all. He goes or he doesn't go. If he goes, woo, party.
Major reinforcers, absolutely.
But if he doesn't go, we don't say anything about that. We just, good job sitting on the potty. We pull up the pants and we go on, and we come back a few minutes later.
15 minutes later.
We wait a whole other 15 minutes.
He's on a 15-minute
But if he doesn't go, we wait 15 minutes again?
You still wait 15 minutes. If he has an accident in the second 15-minute period, then you can do two things. You can either shorten it again to 5 minutes after he hasn't gone, or you can let him sit longer until he goes. But don't change your interval, because you've made good progress. You're at 15 minutes.
But the main thing is it's almost like a non-reaction when they wet themselves or don't do anything.
You just
need big reaction when they go on the potty.
Right.
Okay, we tend to talk, Dr. Graham-Boucher. We tend to be like, why aren't you peeing? And why aren't the
no. Continues to be a behaviorist. You've done a great job.
There we go. Okay, our West Virginia mama wrote in, and I'm heartbroken. She said, hello. My daughter recently started kindergarten. There were many instances of bullying in her first week, including being blocked from the bathroom, isolated, punched in the head, etc. It has been horrible. I tried working with the school, and they were no help in handling these situations or even with accommodating my daughter's needs. I decided it was best to homeschool her for at least a year so we can continue working on social skills, etc. through the skills program along with our homeschool curriculum. The main issue we are having is that she has regressed tremendously in talking. She was completely verbal, and now after 7 to 8 days of school, she went from multiple word sentences to only scripting and answering with one word when asked a question. The school said she isn't eligible for services now that she is homeschooled and that she does not meet the requirements in IDEA for an IEP. How do we work on regaining her speech? I'm not sure where to start exactly, and thanks. I just want to say that we will address the legal parts of this tomorrow with Bonnie Yates, special education attorney, but I want to talk about the regression with you.
Yeah, that's horrible. I'm really sorry that you had to experience that, and I hope that Bonnie will give you a lot of different ways to handle. Honestly, you have every right to actually threaten the school with a lawsuit, because they are clearly responsible for some of the regression that has occurred, and they should help you fund some of this work that will be necessary to kind of get her back. But having said that, I don't want you to be afraid, because this is a temporary type of regression, and it is very clearly associated with anxiety, and she's had a bad experience. It's almost like saying she had PTSD, so this is post-traumatic stress. And with a little time passing and her learning, realizing that it is a safe environment again, at home, and once you reintroduce to school, you'll have to also make sure that she feels safe, because she will, I'm not sure you'll ever reintroduce her to this school, because she needs to have an environment ultimately where she feels safe. But what you would do right now is just, you look at the areas of language that have gone, and you know what she's capable of, and so you will try to prompt her visually, verbally, model for her however you can, so that she does more lengthier sentences, full sentences, and just be very rewarding right now, and just set up a program for her at home. You're pretty familiar with our skills stuff, and so set up a little program. Just have her, let's say, she's not using descriptors, or her statements have gone down to like just 5 words or 3 words or whatever, and she's capable of more. Start modeling for her what she should be responding, and highly reinforce it. Make it a very pleasant environment. I would recommend that you get other kids involved. So if you can bring other children to the house that are very kind and gentle, I think that would be important, and that would go a long way, because the bullying that she has experienced from other children. So at this point, what you would be concerned about is her not developing a fear, an actual phobia of being around other children. So I think that's very important right now. But don't worry, because just even if you did nothing, honestly, with a period of time passing, the anxiety will dissipate, and she will start to be herself again. Just to expedite things, you just need to model for her a lot, and prompt a lot, and maintain a very, very intensely reinforcing environment.
Okay, we're not going to have time to get to the third question, but I will say, for the mom who has the son with ADHD who is having a problem in the afternoon, not in the morning, and being sent to the principal. We will talk about this with Bonnie Yates tomorrow from a legal standpoint, because he's fine in the morning, afternoon, everything falls apart, and they send him to the principal. So we will talk about that.
Well, he might have he might be also dropping in sugar, or I don't know what's happening with him, but if a child is fine in the morning and not doing so well in the afternoon, that indicates to me that physiologically they're getting exhausted or not fueling.
Yeah, and this idea of, okay, let's send them out and send them to the principal, not what's going to work.
No.
So we'll have Bonnie talking to you a little bit about legally about what you can do with the school so that they can get back on their job, because really they need to be doing some things and taking some data for you so that you can be better informed.